Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of The Fan Show, where we will be talking to a number of Tottenham Hotspur fans from all around the world, talking about Tottenham Hotspur and talking about Thomas Frank, who is just about to be appointed as the new head coach at Tottenham Hotspur, replacing Ange Postecoglou, who, of course, guided Spurs to Europa League glory a couple of weeks ago against Manchester United. Now, I'm delighted to say that I've got Craig Dearman alongside me this evening to talk to fans all around the world. Craig, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Always look forward to these shows, to be honest with you. Just talking to people around the world, as you say. It's always good to talk to Tottenham fans. So we just want to hear from you and get whatever is on your chest off your chest and let everybody know what you're thinking.
Absolutely. Now, there is still time. If you'd like to appear on tonight's show or indeed a future show, please just send me an email. It is tottenhamfanchris@gmail.com and we will get you on and you can talk about whatever you like. You can talk about our Europa League win. You can talk about Ange Postecoglou. You can talk about Thomas Frank, or you can talk about the transfer window, or whatever you wish. Craig, I'm going to start with you before we bring on our first guest. Now, of course, Thomas Frank is just about to become the new Tottenham Hotspur head coach. How are you feeling about it? Because as per usual, and this isn't a criticism, this is just very natural now, the fan base is very mixed by this choice and decision.
Yeah, look, the emotion of Postecoglou sacking is waned a bit. Realise we have to move on. As I said before, I wasn't enthralled by the talk of appointment of Thomas Frank, but I'm coming round to it. I haven't done a bit of research on him, and obviously we know a bit more about him because we see him week after week in the Premier League against Brentford, when we play Brentford especially. And you know, if you're watching Match of the Day or whatever it is you're watching, you've seen how his teams perform. So yeah, I'm quietly positive, I would say, about his appointment. He's certainly going to be a safe pair of hands in the Premier League. So I'm interested to see how this is going to go with Thomas Frank. And obviously, I just hope for his sake that the fan base is behind him, because he's coming into a difficult job. We all know Spurs is a difficult managerial post, but coming in after our first European success of 41 years, he's got a tough act to follow in that regard as far as Postecoglou goes. But to get a better position in the league, you would think is almost a given. So it's going to be an interesting time, and it will be very interesting to see what players he wants to keep around at the club and which players he decides to let go, and what players we bring in.
Yeah. You mentioned the word safe. It does seem a very sensible choice to take over Spurs, because, of course, we've been through so many different types of managers. But this is a coach, a very good coach, I might add. And interestingly, Craig, out of all the time that he has managed Brentford in the Premier League, they have never, ever been in the relegation zone. And I say that because a lot of people expected Brentford to go down, having come up from the Championship 4 years ago. But he has tactical flexibility: 4-3-3, 3-5-2, and 4-2-3-1. And he is someone who has fantastic relationships with his board, all of his players, and most importantly, the fans.
Yes, and that's key, isn't it? I mean, he's going to want to get the fans on side. Hopefully the fans will be on side. Doesn't seem the sort of manager to make waves. He's not a Jose or a Conte. So I don't think Daniel Levy's going to get any pushback from Thomas Frank. I think he'll just be happy to, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, be happy to have the job and the chance to manage a club like Spurs, and will just deal with what he's got, and probably won't ask for the earth player-wise, which is a bit worrying, because the likes of, and I'm going to mention him again, Eberechi Eze, is that seen a signing that's too much money to spend for Tottenham? I hope it's not. But Frank working with our young players will be good to see as well. We know he likes to give youth a chance. So we obviously need a bit of a blend next season. I still think we need experience to come through the door. So it'll be interesting to see as I say, what players he wants to bring in and how he's going to use the current squad.
Yeah, that's a good point, because he actually spent 5 years working with Danish players at youth level. So you would expect him to give the youth system a good opportunity, which I think it would be great for Spurs. Let's bring in our first guest, and we've got Dustin with us all the way from Singapore at 3 o'clock in the morning. Dustin, fair play to you for coming on here, wanting to talk about Tottenham. How are you at the moment? How are you feeling?
I think I've had enough time to process what happened with Ange leaving, and I think that we have to face reality to a certain extent, which is if Daniel Levy isn't going to make signings, then we need to adapt to the reality that we have. We have fans that go, we want Levy out, but if he is on the board, he's not going to fire himself. So if we have to deal with the situation that we have, then Thomas Frank is a manager that is known for getting the most out of his team on a budget. So that kind of puts us in the position where it might be more pragmatic. Whether you think that is the future for Spurs is a different thing. But I think that there are some realities that we realize that we don't spend the money that we need to. And that's why people talk about Brighton being a model where you sign players, they become good at your club, you sell them on before they lose value, so to speak. So I think that while I like the style of a dominant possession-based team like Ange did, like Pochettino did, I think that based on the way that we sign or don't sign players, this might be a fit that matches the way that we do player acquisitions and the way we manage our squad.
Dustin, do you think that the fan base will be accepting of a manager that's a bit more pragmatic after we've had Ange Ball, even though some would say that Ange Ball hasn't made an appearance in the last 10 months?
Yeah. I think for the players, they're professionals. They'll play with whoever they have to play with. There are players that, for example, I think Romero is, he was possibly already edging towards the door. And given what he said on Instagram, this is the way, right? It's basically giving him more of an excuse to look at other options. Van der Ven's latest interview was also kind of worrying, where the last few statements in the interview, he was also talking about, it's kind of peculiar that the club do that. So I think that there are certain players that are very emotionally tied to the fact that they've won a title. In many cases, their first title with Ange. So you're never going to forget the manager that got you there. But ultimately, especially if they're quite young in their career at the start of their contracts, they know that they're not going to get out if they've still got 2-3 years on their contract. For the players that are close to the end of their contracts, I think that might be more of a factor. But realistically, I think that if we see success, I think success kind of changes a lot of things. Once you have success, you're not going to have to worry that much about what the players do.
Dustin,
like
what do you Dustin, what do you make? What do you make of Thomas Frank? Because we know that he can, he makes his teams very, very hard to beat, but we know that he likes offensive football, and we know that he can play silky football. We've seen it in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think that particularly that they were really good with set pieces early on in the games, and they were basically bamboozling teams with a very early break and making sure that teams started very early with a goal down, 2 goals down. So I think that he's shown that he can adapt to different teams. He's probably got very good analysts. I wonder how much of Thomas Frank's success has come as part of Brentford's system. So I think that we might see which parts of his team that he brings over as well. I think that will be a very big factor. a lot will be also in terms of like signings and scouting. Those are the other intangibles that we're not sure whether they're part of Brentford's system or whether they're part of Frank's team. The other part that I also am concerned about is the medical department, because we've not had good luck with injuries, and I wonder whether he will also have to deal with the kind of injury problems that we've had. That said, I think that there are certain attributes that that will make him a better fit for us, particularly in the centre back department, because we have sensational centre backs for Ange's style that we can't keep fit, and the centre backs that we do have, that we have Dragusin and we have done so, and we don't know if we're going to be able to keep Romero and Van de Ven. In the scenario that we do lose Romero or Van de Ven, maybe not this season, but maybe next season, I feel like with Frank, his system would fit Danso and Dragusin better. And for Romero and Van de Ven, like, they do have weaknesses. They're really sensational in a transitional style of play. But when they have to do box defending, that's actually when we've seen their weaknesses. We've seen Romero lose his man when the ball goes over the top to the far post. We've seen Van de Ven get turned inside out by Isaac. So there are attributes that our centre backs have that might fit a Frank system more. When I say our centre backs, I mean Danso and Dragusin, as opposed to Romero and Van de Ven. So that's one thing. The other part is that when we're used to playing with Solanke as the lone striker, Thomas Frank does play two strikers sometimes. So I think that maybe what that allows us to do is change the way that we attack as well. And that actually gets the most out of like the combination of players that we have, so that we're less reliant on a single striker, less reliant on inside forwards and wing play. I guess the other question is there might be less reliance on the six for creativity as well, and then we have more robust box midfielders, because that's what we have a lot of. So then we are also less reliant on players that we can't keep fit, like Madison and Bergvall. And then we've got Sa, we've got a lot of options that we are able to use to transition the ball in a different way.
Dustin, what players would you like to see come into Tottenham over the summer?
Given our board, I don't really expect a big signing. Like, people talk about Mbuemo. I don't see that being realistic. I think that the trajectory of our signings from the previous seasons has been sign young and hope that they get good. And that was, I think, a big part of what fell apart for us last season, because we had very bad injury problems and we had little experience, and we had basically teenagers that would be the depth options for the squad. So I think that was the part of the season that fell apart for us. So for me, I think rather than thinking hypothetically about signings, I would like to see what we can do with the existing players that we have, and then if we get signings, that's great. But I certainly don't expect them, because we know with Spurs we have all these dreams of players that we're going to sign, like Jack Grealish and Eze and everything, and it just reminds me of Leandro Damião. We get linked to him for like 6-7 seasons and just never comes to pass. So for me, I would like to see more of how we actually have a different team based on how they're played differently.
Dustin, it's interesting because you mentioned about the injuries. In the 23-24 season, Thomas Frank at Brentford had 21 injuries during that season, 11 surgeries, and also Tony was suspended, and he still managed to get results, at the G-Tech Stadium. So he knows how to get results, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And I think that's the adaptability that we're talking about. So I think one part that we have to consider, and the adaptability is a part that, for the people that believe Ange should have gone, they believe that if a manager is more pragmatic, you turn more of the losses into draws, and then that gets you 1 point, and then you don't like fall down to 17th in the table. There is a flip side to that. If you are playing where you are looking to limit damage and not get a 0 in terms of no points for a loss, and you play for the draw, it also means that you're not trying for 3 points. So the reason that the top teams that we've seen in the league are always attacking teams based on possession, your Liverpools, your Man Cities, let's not talk about the scum down the road, but the reason that the teams at the top of the table are all attacking teams is because they are doing the trade-off to try to win the points. And if you get more draws than wins, or more of your wins become draws because you're more pragmatic, it also means that you don't hit the points totals you need to win the league. So I've got a chart here that looks at kind of how many points did the Premier League champions claim. And if we look at, let's ignore before 2012, because that was like when United won their last title, right? And basically when money came into the league, when City started winning the league, the average points total has been, the high 80s, low 90s. The exception is Leicester when they won 81 points. So if you need high points totals to win, and frequently we're seeing like mid 90s or so, then you kind of need an attacking style of play, because you are doing that trade-off to get the points total that can win the league. And if you're more pragmatic, maybe the most you can get is 86 points or so, which in the era that I'm talking about, 86 points would have won the league only 1, 2, 3 seasons since 2013. So that's another thing that you have to think about when you're talking about a style of play. If we have a style of play that gets us an average higher position, it might also mean that we would not be challenging the title as often, unless we have a Leicester season where everyone, all the big teams are in transition.
Dustin, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us, particularly in the middle of the night.
Have a nice one.
Speak to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers, bye.
Right, we're now going to go all the way to Malta to speak to Manuel. Manuel, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm well. Hi, Greg. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Manuel.
Manuel, how are you feeling right now about the news that Thomas Frank is going to become the new Tottenham Hotspur boss?
I was very, very sad and disappointed because I was emotionally attached with Ange. Not because we won the Europa League. I've been attached to him since day one. First, we had that first 10 of games, which were magical. And I still am haunted by that offside goal and the second goal against Chelsea, which I don't think was offside. And then from that split second Son was offside, we got Romero sent off and Van de Ven injured, and last year everything trembled. But now I'm starting to see some videos, some interviews of Thomas Frank, and you can see that this guy is licking his lips. This guy is waiting for this opportunity, and he wants it.
Yeah.
I still love Ange, and I think Ange bleeds Tottenham. His whole character, his whole attitude, the way his experiences from where he came. I think I when I see Ange, I resemble the Tottenham character. But Thomas Frank, I'm getting excited. What can I say?
Yeah. It's I wouldn't say I'm getting overly excited, but I think I'm coming round to the thought of it because, like you, Manuel, I was gutted that Ange left, but we have to move on. So, do you think what do you think is the expectation the club will put on Thomas Frank next season? What do you think his main priorities are going to be? And because he's
Fighting
always
on all
been
fronts.
fighting on all fronts, absolutely. So, what do you think is realistic, and what do you think they've told him?
Look, for me, if you've told me last year for Ange that we win the Europa League, no one would have believed it. So for me, for the same thing applies for Thomas Frank. In the next 2 to 3 years, if we get to an FA Cup final, or to a League Cup final, or to a European Cup final again in these 2 to 3 years, I think that will build on Ange's legacy, and that will start Thomas Frank's legacy. I think he's not going to come to Tottenham Hotspur and say, I'm going to stay mid-table. I want to create my own legacy, and I have something to build on. And I don't think Frank is looking at this to start a rebuild from zero. I think Ange Postecoglou has done the dare to work these 2 years, which was a hard rebuild. And Thomas Frank is thinking, I can build on this foundation. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get to a final in these 2 to 3 years. And it's not like we lost 4 consecutive finals, right? In these past 18 years against 3 League Cups and a Champions League. That's 4 consecutive finals. So we won the Europa League. Hopefully the next final we win again. That's how you build momentum, and that's how you build a legacy of winning. It's not like you win a trophy, hopefully we win again. Hopefully.
Manuel, in one of his interviews, and I've done a lot of research on Thomas Frank, which I'm sure every single Spurs fan has done as well. When we know a new manager is going to take over at the football club, we want to know the ins and outs of his career and what he's achieved and what he's done in the past. He once said, perfect football life at Brentford. It certainly won't be perfect at Spurs. We know that. Him looking in to what other people have done, Ange Postecoglou, of course, achieving the Europa League success. What will he be looking to do differently, do you think? What will he be? Because he must be relishing this challenge, but then at the same time, he must think, actually, all of these guys have gone in there, haven't been successful at Tottenham. What must I do different? What do you think is going through his head?
For me, I think he's very excited for this opportunity. I think Brentford was a good job for him, and he done an excellent job. But for him, I think this is where his career is gonna blossom. I think now, I don't know his mindset, and I don't know what Levy's budget is, but I hope it's not a rebuild, like a restart. I hope it's continuing on the foundations of Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah.
So he'll be sitting with the stars, and the stars are Romero. The spine of the squad is Romero, Bentancur, and Kulusevski. And if he can persuade them with his vision, with his ideals, and if he sits with them and talks to them and tells them what he wants, what he dreams about. I mean, Ange, he told them, I always win in the second season. And I hope Thomas Frank, when he meets Bergvall, when he meets Gray, when he meets Bissouma, when he meets Sarr, and he tells them, look, this is my vision. I want to compete. I want to beat Arsenal. I want to beat City. I want to beat Liverpool. I want to be the best in England. I hope those are the words he's saying. And Postecoglou had this. It's the affirmation. You have to speak and affirm yourself. And unless you affirm yourself, no one will affirm yourself. He had this vision, he had this mindset. So I have no doubt Thomas Frank is this character, because from his interviews, the way he talks, the way he engages with other humans, he affirms himself, and he lights a spark with the people around him. So I'm very excited for this future season.
So it's fair to say, Manuel, that you think this is a good appointment for Spurs, and we've gone for the big name managers, and we've gone for a manager that's got Premier League experience. That's a tick in the box. And also, all right, he hasn't won anything, but you obviously think that he's got the capability and that he could win something with Tottenham?
For me, Daniel Levy did a big gamble by sticking with Ange Postecoglou, and it paid off. We won the Europa League. I was very sad that Daniel Levy and the board took a very difficult decision. Hopefully, that gamble pays off. We have the Super Cup. Now it would be very difficult to beat Paris Saint-Germain. But if Thomas Frank does it, it would install a lot of belief within the club and within the players. So that's his first opportunity. He'll be very happy to play in the Super Cup and to play in the Champions League. So I think if the way his character is, the way he affirms himself, and the positivity and the the way he vibrates and talks, I think there's something in these 2 to 3 years. I'm very positive.
Can you actually imagine the first competitive game that Thomas Frank takes charge of and we beat PSG? Can you imagine it?
I can't imagine it. I dreamt a lot of Son lifting the Europa League these past 2 months, and it happened. I mean, it's going to be very difficult, realistically. Hopefully, Levy backs him with 2 to 3 to 4 transfers. And today, last year, we got Solanke and 3 youngsters. And I don't feel Ange was backed. We entered the Europa League, lots of games. And we bought King's Key in January, a transfer period late. And we bought Danso, a transfer period late. So I think those were bad decisions and led to why we finished 17th in the league. Obviously, no one could predict the injuries. I make a comparison of our league position, comparing us to Newcastle. Newcastle last year had lots of injuries. And this year, everyone was fit for Newcastle, and they did really well and won the League Cup. So I hope next year, the only thing I wish is no one gets injured for Tottenham Hotspurs. That's my wish. Imagine having 25 men competing in training and everyone wants to play. And if we win a few games, and I believe, Thomas Frank also loves to rotate. I think if we need a system where he rotates. You cannot play 11 in the Champions League and 11 in the Premier League. And you have to rotate. But Ange did that. Ange rotated, but he did not get the results in the league.
He seems a very calm guy, doesn't he, Manuel? And also, he gets on extremely well with his players. And from all of the video clips that I've seen, he gets really heavily involved in the training sessions.
Look, I still love Ange. He will always be in my heart. Thomas Frank has an opportunity. He has an opportunity for him personally. I think he's very excited. I can't wait to see his first interview for Tottenham Hotspur. I hope it's a continuation. I hope it's season 3, not a restart. I hope he keeps the spine of the squad, the Paratrici transfers of Romero, Bentancur, and Kulusevski. And I hope he just adds a few pieces, gives opportunities to the youth, and rotates heavily to avoid injuries.
Yeah. Manuel, thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thanks, you.
Manuel.
Right, we're now going to go to Lee in New York. Lee, how are you?
Hello, chaps. Good afternoon. Good evening.
Great to have you with us again, Lee. How are you feeling about the news? Of course, we've not spoken to you since Ange Postecoglou has gone out the door. I don't even think we've spoken to you since we've won the Europa League. How has the last few weeks been for you?
Yeah, it was AZ Akmar semi-finals the last time that I was on. I think I'm delighted. So I'm delighted. I was a big fan of Frank before we got Ange. In fact, I knew more about Frank than I did Ange at that time. Maybe some of us felt that way. And I think once a decision was made, as kind of harsh as maybe it was, Frank was the one I wanted. Tactical flexibility, which is the buzzword of the moment.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, Frank's obviously a very smart guy, talks a lot to his players. You've seen a lot of really great content of him coaching from the sidelines, which we didn't see. And I just felt that, and you would know this better than anyone, Chris, because you went to every game, but it felt to me that Ange was binary. He wasn't flexible. So the binary meaning it was two ways. He either played like Ozzy Ardiles in the league, or he played like George Graham in the cup. And we know which worked and which didn't, but there didn't ever seem to be much of a happy medium. And so I think given the whole piece about, I know the league, some people want to discount the league, but any other season we get relegated. Unfortunately, I just don't know if that was sustainable. So I'm really excited about Frank.
Lee, do you think you just mentioned Ange Postecoglou's style of football there? Do you think that style of football would never work in the Premier League, or do you think it's that Spurs just haven't got the players to play that style?
Oh, that's a great question, Craig. My gut, well, the Weasley way is say a bit of both. But if you look at Man City under Pep when they won everything, they didn't throw everything at. It wasn't the kitchen sink. I mean, they had incredible players, of course, to your point, like Rodri, who could cover. They've had great number sixes. We've had great defending, but there was just less abandonment as far as I could see. Liverpool, pretty pragmatic actually in many cases. They just have some great players, so it's hard to know if it's a separation of system or players. My gut says it's probably the system. I mean, having kind of almost 5 people up, fullbacks playing as 10s, and then centre halves just having to cover the rest. I'm not sure even City would pull that off, and we certainly don't have their players. So, yeah, unfortunately, and it's strange because the Cup was so different because we played such a sort of pragmatic style of football, which obviously worked. I'd love to have heard the fans if we'd played that every week. I'm sure people would have been pretty fed up, but ironically, it sort of worked, didn't it?
Lee, I've got lots of things that I've written down. Lots of pros about Thomas Frank coming in. The only one, I wouldn't even call it a negative. Perhaps concern would be the right word about him not managing before in the Champions League, because of course Spurs are in the Champions League next season, which is fantastic news for the football club again. Does that worry you? Because from what I've seen, I'm going to turn this into a positive, because all of the challenges that Thomas Frank has had, he's always come through.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. I mean, I think you can look at it a number of ways. Like with that new format, I mean, we're going to be seeded. I don't know where we're seeded in the second or the third pot. We're obviously not in the first pot. So we're going to get drawn, whatever it is, 8 games in that first league. I'm still a bit confused about the new format. But it's going to be like insanely hard to get to the round of 16. Like it's probably going to be really, really hard to get to the playoffs. So my feeling is like, even if we'd had someone who had Champions League experience and found himself with our current squad in that sort of new format, it's hard to know whether they would be any better off for it, because it's going to be so much harder. I mean, I know we played a ton of games in the Europa League in the end, but the Champions League format, like we could get drawn against all of the big boys in like our first 4 or 5 games. So I don't know if it matters. Ange had Champions League experience with Celtic and they got tonked because he stuck to his principles. It was kind of exciting. You think about the Celtic Real Madrid game, the one that springs to mind. But I think perhaps that, some fresh thinking combined with a bit of pragmatism would be good. I mean, I don't think the other thing about Frank, people want to cast him, I think because of his personality, they say, oh, he's a pragmatist, so therefore his football's going to just be pragmatic. I don't know if you guys remember, it was about 3 seasons ago on the Friday night, first game of the season, and Arsenal went to Brentford. And Brentford not just beat them, but they ripped them to pieces.
Yeah, I remember.
It was unbelievable. And that wasn't long ball, lucky set pieces. It was really go for the jugular football. And that's what I hope we see, combined with some of those tougher games where, yeah, if we need to sit in and be pragmatic, so be it,
Do you think the fan base will allow Frank that pleasure for us to be pragmatic then, Lee? As long as the results come with it, right? You know what I mean?
Don't you think it's a good mixture though, Craig, of like he can be defensive, but he can, play, super entertaining football at the same time? I feel like it's a really, really good balance, actually.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're a fickle bunch, aren't we? Let's just be honest about Tottenham. In fact, we are a fickle bunch. I mean, it wasn't.
Well, some of us.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've used the royal we. But, you were at the games, Chris. I mean, when was the last time people sang Ange's name before we won the cup? I mean, it's horrible when you're just watching on TV, but I didn't hear his name being sung anytime. In fact, you heard Pochettino's name being sung once or twice at away games, it seems. So I think the fans have every right to let it play out and judge on what they see. I think, like everyone, you've got to give him a fair go. And I feel like if there is, to what Craig said, if the results come, particularly, well, let's get Paris out of the way with, because that could be a cricket score. But if the results come, I think people will want to believe, because, you know, it's like even those of us who were really not sure about Ange wanted him to succeed. Like, I don't think there was anyone out there who was like, no, I want him to fail because I want him to go. And if they felt that way, that's stupid. But you can still be on the fence with a manager, but say, look, I have an open mind and I want him to succeed. So I think, yeah, it'd be interesting to see the fixtures, right? To see how the fixtures land and see if we think he's going to get a fair crack of the whip.
Brentford away, opening weekend of the season. You just know it.
Yeah, had that 2 years ago, didn't we? We did have it 2 years ago.
Yeah. Was that the one that was Kane's first game gone, wasn't it?
Do you know what? Do you know what, Lee? I'd love Chelsea away on the opening weekend of the season, because let me give you this stat. So in Premier League history since '92, Spurs have only won once at Stamford Bridge. Thomas Frank has taken Brentford to Chelsea 4 times. He has won there 3.
Wow. Well, it'd be good to get that. That's another monkey to be get off the back. So I like the sound of that. I think he'll come with a plan. So yeah, I'm really excited, and it's hopefully what your last caller said, that it's not ripping up what we've done before. It's building on it. I mean, that would be common sense. We don't have the funds to rip it up. Let's face it. So It's just going to be about if there are if Romero stays, ? If Basuma stays. If Richie stays, and then do we add, an exciting winger? I would love Eze, like all of us. Don't know if it'll happen. I'd love a great number 6. I'd love Wharton. I don't think he's got the experience, but he's definitely fits our potential profile. But 2 or 3 players maybe, and not add 5 kids, but maybe 2 players who could come straight in, and I think we'll go right.
Lee, last question, because the time is ticking down, as you can probably see. How do you think his reign's going to start? Do you think he's going to get off to a flyer? Do you think the fans? How long are the fans going to give him if things don't quite go according to plan?
I don't know if he's going to get off to a flyer, but you would think he would get off to a solid start, and I think I don't know what that looks like in the first month, but. Maybe it's definitely not getting beat 3 or 4 times, but I think a solid start, and I think everyone will be positive. And I think also some people, it's a bit like politics. Some people are into it. Some people watch from afar. I think once he starts doing press conferences, once he starts talking to the media, engaging with the fans, I think people will start leaning in, going, okay, I didn't know so much about this guy, but I like what he's saying. I like his philosophy. So I think once all that gets formalized, and probably him saying how delighted he is to be here, then I think that will start to change the psychology a little bit, perhaps.
I saw a clip from Jay Harris, the Athletic correspondent who used to work, covering Brentford. Now he covers Spurs, and he said that there were some times in those away games when Thomas Frank went in that press conference room, and he would be the only person there, covering Brentford, and it would just be him asking the questions after the game. It's going to be very, very different in that press conference room, and that's exactly what he said. That press conference room is going to be full, and they're going to go over the same old stuff. Why haven't Spurs done this, and why haven't Spurs done that, and go over the history of the club again and again and again. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how that pans out. But from what I've seen, and this isn't just now, over the years I've watched Thomas Frank's press conference, particularly when we've been playing them, but he deals with the media extremely well. But it's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out when he is appointed. Lee, you're always such a great guest. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me ask you a very quick last question. Give me a yes or a no. Would you like to see Jack Grealish in a Spurs shirt?
Yes.
Right. Lovely to talk to you. Speak to you soon.
Guys. Bye.
See you later.
Ricky Norwood ought to take note of that. Shouldn't he?
Well, oh, yeah, but just ask for a one-word answer.
Just a quick yes or no, yeah. The amount of times I've said quick yes or no to people and like 10 minutes later. Yeah. Anyway,
Ricky's
we're going to give...
it's not a simple one-word answer, bro.
I know. We're now going to go to Michael. Michael, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Chris and Craig?
Good. How are you? How are you feeling right now, Michael, about the news of Ange going? It seems like a very, very long time ago. I think it was only 5 days ago, but it does seem a very long time. Ange was actually seen today watching the cricket. Been out in the public since the news of the sacking. But how are you feeling right now? Because as Spurs fans, or just in general as football fans, when a manager goes, there's like no time for emotion, is there? It's like you need to just park it. A manager leaves, that's it, end of. And now the new manager comes in, and you need to fully support the new manager, etc., etc. No time for emotion. It's just these decisions hit us hard sometimes, but we've got to move on.
I think you guys said it best at the start of the show. It was probably the sensible choice to fire Ange. 17th is not acceptable, and there was like a lot of red flags. And it's the safe and sensible choice to hire Frank. He's pragmatic. Here's what I like about him. He's a good man manager, which we'll definitely need after Ange is gone, because the players need to get on board. And it seems like Frank is going to do that. He's a good fan manager. He seems like he gets the fans behind him. He's tactically sound and flexible. And I think, to me, he's kind of like the happy medium. He's not the all-out attack of Postecoglou, but he's also like, he doesn't instill these like you can never make a mistake tactics of Mourinho and Conte. So like he kind of has this flexibility that I think gets us back to our DNA of like attractive, sexy, counterattacking football that we have the players for.
Michael, a lot of people have mentioned Jack Grealish in the comments. Now, Jack Grealish has actually been left out of Manchester City's squad to play in the Club World Cup. Would you take Grealish at Tottenham? And do you think that a mission of his is basically saying he's going to be moving on from Manchester City?
I think he would do very well at Tottenham. I think he would be a great fit. I want Aston Villa Jack Grealish, not City Jack Grealish. Don't stick him on the left. Give him freedom. Let him take that, let him and Maddison share that role. And I think that if he can start enjoying his football again at Spurs, I think we would have something quite dangerous.
Michael, when you mentioned that term there, the happy medium, which I completely agree with, because I think it's fair to say what we know about Thomas Frank, he's going to make us, hard to beat.
I agree. I was just looking at all the Brentford goals from last season. What I loved seeing is there's a lot of set piece goals, a lot of corners, do we have a long thrower on our team? I don't know if we do.
I'm sure we will next season.
Exactly. I'm sure we will next season. We'll teach you Dogie to throw like that. But yeah, I think that's something that's been lacking. I think that he clearly gets the best out of his players. Honestly, the only concern I have about Thomas Frank has nothing to do with his management and everything to do with why Daniel Levy wants to hire him, is because he's got the highest points per pound spent. And I think Levy is going to lean on that. And I don't think he's going to spend big money on top players. We're going to try and find the diamonds in the rough. And look, we've had some success with that. And are we really competing with the rest of the big six or big eight or whatever we're calling it, if we're trying to find these offshoot solutions that are very out there and not just spending the 70 mil to get an Eze or whatever Grealish or Semenyo would cost? I'd love to see a lot of those players at our club, but I think we're going to nickel and dime and we're going to end up getting some young kid, which Frank is good at. And I think that means that it feels like it's part of the story. And I just think that we could still use some experience and some talent.
I personally think that we do need to bring in a bit of Premier League experience. I think everyone's agreed. I mean, Ange said before he left that we need to bring in some proven ready-made players, if you like. So I agree with what you're saying, Michael, about, Frank has proved at Brentford that he can, find that diamond in the rough, can get in players that you've never heard of and develop them. Obviously, Wissa came through. Are you familiar with Wissa and how he's,
I'm not familiar with his story, but like I know that. I mean, you could say half of the Brentford lineup, and a couple years ago,
Mbeumo, for example, you know the way he's coached him, and he's got better and better, hasn't he? So, well, let's ask the question: Would you want to see Brian Mbeumo come to Tottenham from Brentford?
I think the short answer is yes. I'm not going to give you the one-word answer though. He's clearly talented. He's got an eye for goal. He checks a box, and he seems to just do everything well. My question is like, is he playing out on the right? Because then we have three players that kind of play out on the right. We have him. We have Johnson. Decky still likes to play out there, and it seems like we're really committed to Madison being in the 10. Although I think they could share that. Like, so are we filling a position? I think there are more pressing needs, and it would be hard to say no if he wants to come with Frank. So like, I think when you have a talent that wants to come, you say yes and you fit him in, but I would much rather prioritize a number 6 and someone out on the left. But have we heard anything? Is Tell coming back? Is it another loan? Do we know anything about Tell?
They're still talking about it. They're still in discussions about whether it's going to be a loan, whether it's going to be a permanent deal, whether they can get a better price on him. So watch this space. I think the manager should definitely have a say in whether Tell comes back to the football club. I know a lot of these decisions are or can be club decisions, and it's not only Spurs. This is how modern day football works now. But when we talk about recruitment, Thomas Frank at Brentford has done extremely well, always improved players, and a lot of his team, a lot of his squad, unsung heroes, for what they do. They're such hard-working players and very well-drilled players, very well-coached players by Frank. Of course, he's worked with Johan Lange before as well. And of course, now the club are heavily data-driven. Fabio Prasci could come back to the football club as well. Marco, how do you feel like that dynamic will work with him obviously knowing and being good friends with Johan Lange and with Fabio Prasci coming back? I suppose it would be a good mixture of data plus Fabio Prasci coming with his contact book.
I honestly that all is a positive for me. Frank's relationship with Lange, I think that is like a no question. And like, I'm sure that fed into the decision to hire Frank. And I think Paratici, look, we got some of our best players, our best recent signings are from the Paratici era, it feels like. So that to me, it's all positive. And I think, look, we're not going to spend as much as a City or a United or a Liverpool. We can't splash 150 mil on Florian Wirtz as much as he would be an upgrade from Madison. So we need to be able to play that game and play the stats, play the data game. And again, my concern is Levy. It tends to always be Levy, because I think Levy's going to lean on that. Okay, how can we get this for 10 million less? How can we not pay what it's worth? And I look at United, who, especially after losing the final, had a shit season. Apologies if we're not allowed to curse. They had a terrible season. The day after the season ends, Cunha's already on board. And Mbeumo is wants to go to his childhood club. They're making moves, and it's always chaos with Spurs. We can't just seem to do it. It's always a story.
Go on, Chris. Go on.
I was going to say, Craig, that it's amazing how negativity can come so quickly, but then just a couple of small decisions or small things to happen at a football club, all of a sudden that positivity is back. And I feel like this is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah,
I think so too. And I think once we see the playing style, we get a couple of good results, the fans are going to get on board. We will. We just want to see good football. We want to see wins. We want to see points. And what I would say is while Ange didn't deserve to get the sack, on that same note, Frank deserves to manage at a bigger club. He has earned that over the last few years. And we can ride that wave. Pochettino was not all that dissimilar. He earned his rights at Southampton, and he made them a viable team. And then he moved to us, and he continues to grow. So I see Frank as the Pochettino replacement. which we've really needed. And will forever be thankful that Ange had his stint and brought us a trophy that we so desperately needed.
Michael, last question for you. Of course, you're in America. USA just lost 4-0 to Switzerland under Pochettino. How's that going?
To be honest, I try not to follow the American team because they're just terrible to watch. And Pulisic once Pulisic put on a Chelsea jersey, I was like, I don't want this guy to be the leader of my squad. It is not looking hopeful. Like, especially like, I thought Pochettino was a good appointment, but like, something's not vibing. It is not a good fit. And I am not looking forward to hosting a tournament that we are going to do seemingly very poorly in.
Yeah. Michael, great to talk to you again. And hopefully we can talk to you again in the near future.
Same. Cheers, guys. I appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. We're now going to go to Darren. Stu, we'll come to you next. Darren, evening. How are you?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm doing a little better now. I've had some time just to digest the sort of shock and disappointment.
Darren, talk to us. Tell us how you're exactly feeling, because I always like to ask people that as the first question, because, you know, some people are very emotional about it and some people don't park it. Some people do move on very quickly. Where are you at with it? Were you disappointed that Postecoglou's gone out, and how do you feel about the appointment of Thomas Frank?
Yeah, so I was disappointed because it sort of, you know, it was a crazy season, but we won something. And so I felt like there was momentum. I felt like we could go on to that magical season 3, the third season, and do some good things. And then it sort of felt like it came crashing down. And now you've used the word reset, and we're sort of starting over again. But, you know, I've been able to reflect on it a little bit more. I'm feeling a little less pessimistic now. And actually, there was a good poll I saw on, I think it was on football.london. It was interesting. So it asked, would you want Ange or Frank to be in charge at the upcoming season? And it was narrowly in favour of Ange, about 53%, at least when I saw the poll. Then they asked, do you think Thomas Frank's going to win a trophy, yes or no? And that was kind of 50-50. It was leaning towards no. But then they also asked, do you think Frank is a good appointment? And this is where it gets interesting, because it went to 80% were like, yes. So, you know, I think that sort of encapsulates how many of the Spurs fans are feeling. It's like, well, we're a little bit hesitant, a little bit reluctant, but it's definitely not the worst thing in the world. You know, it could actually turn out to be a good appointment.
It's not just Spurs fans, though, Craig, is it? Everyone respects him.
They seem to, and you know, he probably could have stayed at Brentford for another 10 years, you know, but he's seen this opportunity come along. And as I've said, with the greatest respect in the world, Tottenham are a step up from Brentford, aren't they? And so when Tottenham come knocking, he's obviously very excited about that project. I did read something. Was it him or one of his coaching staff said he would love to manage Spurs, or he's got a soft spot for Spurs or something like that? So that's...
Yeah, apparently they joked if they ever left Brentford, they would want to go to Tottenham.
God dear. It is funny though, isn't it? How managers seem to age a lot when they come to Tottenham. It is crazy. It is crazy. So Darren, it seems like you're kind of roughly roundabout where I am with this whole situation with Thomas Frank. You've had time to digest Ange Postecoglou going, and now you're going to give him a fair crack of the whip, aren't you? You're going to get behind him. How do you think he's going to change this league form? Do you think it was purely down to the injuries we had, or do you think there's a deeper problem within Tottenham that the players weren't good enough for the league, but they were good enough to win the cup? Because you could argue the teams we played in the cup weren't of the same standard as Premier League teams.
Yeah, I think I don't think there's a simple answer to that question, but obviously I think Thomas Frank will bring a bit more stability. You know, we keep bringing up that word pragmatism, and I kind of hate to bring it up because it sort of gives me Gareth Southgate vibes. But there is something to be said for just playing the game that's in front of you. And I think that's what Thomas Frank will do well. So he's not going to go out and just sort of YOLO every game. You know, he will take into consideration who the opposition are, what we can get out of a game, and how to best approach it. So I think there's something to be said for that sort of more like even keel approach.
I just to step in there, I get what you're saying, but do you remember the last few games under Conte and even Jose, people saying, I can't watch this style of football. We need our Tottenham back. We need to see that front foot attacking football. Daniel Levy bought in Ange Postecoglou. We was all excited those first 10 games thinking we've got our Tottenham back. In fact, Daniel Levy said that. And now everybody's going back, well, we want to play front foot attacking football, but not quite as attacking as we've been. So you're dead right. You've got to find that happy medium, haven't you? You can't just go out all guns blazing. This kind of proved that.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, it's not like we're going to go, you know, completely in the opposite direction. It's not like Thomas Frank is a park the bus manager and we got sort of 10 players back. You know, Brentford are known for sort of playing some attacking football. So I think it will probably sit okay with the fans. I think, you know, we expect to see some goals. We expect to see some attacking football, but it's not going to be all out relentless attack, leaving ourselves open, just waiting for the ball over the top from the opposition, and we're, you know, a goal down. So yeah, it's I think that there is a good balance, a positive balance, not sort of a park the bus approach.
Darren, what's going to be different this time, in your opinion? Because 19 managers in 24 years, 8 different managers in the dugout since and including Pochettino since 2019, including caretaker managers. Of course, we are seeing change at the football club in terms of personnel and at board level. What's going to be different this time so we're not sitting here doing another fan show in 18 months' time, 2 years' time, where another manager is going out the door?
Oh boy, that's the question I wouldn't want, because actually, you know, that's the thing that goes through my head. Is that's what I worry about. That's kind of what I worried about with Ange being out the door. I'm immediately going to, okay, so Thomas Frank's got 18 months and we'll be doing this all over again.
It's a fair question, though, isn't it? Because
it is.
You know, we've all asked this when we've had all of these managerial changes, and this isn't me sitting here being negative. Far from it. I'm being realistic in saying, you know, honestly, I feel like that conversation needs to take place amongst the football club themselves in the board. They must they must get sick of keep sacking managers, appointing managers. You know, I'm sure that they want it to work, but I know Daniel Levy has sometimes come out and said that he got it wrong. But, you know, surely, and a lot of people use that phrase, you know, back the manager. Surely these transfer windows, particularly this summer one going into the Champions League next season, is very, very important.
Yeah, and that's another worry too. Like how is Thomas Frank going to get backed? To what extent? And so, you know, your question is how is it going to be different this time? It's a really tough one to answer. I guess I go back to this idea that Thomas Frank is a sort of, he's very well balanced, right? He's not one way or the other, which kind of maybe is what we need, and maybe that will be the difference maker, because for sure he can't park the bus, and we can't be stumbling over the line with these things and just getting by and squeaking through, because that's, the fans are going to get frustrated with that, and that's not going to fly. But we also can't, you know, just be gung-ho, YOLO, throw everything at it, you know, 5 players up front. So the other one of the other things about Frank that I'm kind of interested and excited by, and you mentioned this earlier in the show, is that he's worked with a lot of youth players. So hopefully he can bring on the likes of Bergvall and Gray and Mikey Moore, you know, and they will become just phenomenal for us. And that'll be good for Levy too, because he won't have to spend a penny. But the problem, of course, with that is it's an if, and we're talking a lot about the now, and we need the now. So I don't know. There's a lot of things that need to fall in place here for it to work. And it's going to be critical for Thomas Frank, I think, to get off to a pretty, at least as was said earlier, a solid start, if not a great start. Otherwise, it could turn very quickly.
Very quick last question for you, Darren. Is Thomas Frank going to win a trophy with Tottenham Hotspur?
51% say no. So, I'll be optimistic and I'll say not in his first season. How about that? So maybe in his second season. I think he's going to need a season for him and the players to kind of find their feet and get their rhythm. But it's doable.
Wouldn't it be really funny? Wouldn't it be really funny in his first press conference, Thomas Frank says, I'm going to win a trophy in my second season. Something similar like that. My God, I think we'd all be like, oh my God. Yeah. Darren, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, cheers, gents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
Right. Craig, can I ask you that question? What's going to be different this time?
I can't sit here hand on heart and say anything's going to be different, because I've supported this club far too long and I've followed this club through this ownership far too long. So I just remember every manager that's come through the door since we've been doing these podcasts. You've asked me that same question and you said, surely it's got to be different this time, Craig, hasn't it? And I've said, yeah, it has to be this time, Chris, and it never is. So it's kind of a case of the manager, the manager, I suppose, earning his money a bit more. Not that Ange didn't earn his money. Christ, did he earn his money? But, you know, it looks like the coaching's got to be spot on and improving what we've got.
What about the changes at board level? And I had a very interesting conversation with Martin Lipton from The Sun last night, and he was saying that Vinay Venkatesham, is not scared of a microphone. He will quite happily go out and talk to the fans and be that connection. And I feel like that is something that we have missed as a football club. You know, Fabio Prasci, when he was at the football club, did these. It's around sort of every 6-month updates, you know, after transfer windows. And then they started doing regular pieces like that. And then, of course, that stopped again. But I feel like that communication from the club to the fans is extremely important. And that does seem like that will be back this coming season.
I think it is. And the fans want to hear from people at the top and what's going on inside the club. But ultimately, all fans are going to care about is results. They just want to see it on the pitch. So I'm all for whether it's Venkatesham coming out or Paratici or whoever it is coming out and talking a bit more. Yeah. Put it out on the club website, on the club socials, you know. It'd be nice to hear from them once a month, you know. Just some honesty rather than guarded, scripted things, you know, like the fan shows that they host, you know. I mean, they've only done one in the last 2 or 3 years, you know. They obviously know what questions are going to be asked. I want real questions, real time, so they get some difficult questions asked of them. And it's probably never going to happen, is it? Let's be honest, because they can't control it. So, but it would be interesting. I'd love for somebody from the board, Mr. Venkatesham, if you're listening to this, come on the channel and have a chat with Chris, because that's the sort of thing that fans would appreciate. And I think that's what they're missing. They're missing a trick with things like that, you know. Somebody from the board comes on a fan channel like this one and talks. That would be brilliant. Yeah,
Vinay, you're very welcome on the fan show. No problem.
Yes, absolutely. Right. And Mr. Paratici as well, you know.
Absolutely. They're all welcome. They're all welcome. Right, let's get Stu Miller on. Jamie, we'll come to you next. Stu, how are you? Stu, I think you're on mute.
He's better on mute, to be fair.
I say I talk a lot more sense on mute. That's for sure.
How are you?
Knows me so I'm good. Thanks, boys. How you going?
All good. All good. How are you feeling about this this news that Thomas Frank will be confirmed as the new Tottenham Hotspur boss before the weekend?
I think I've moved on in terms of I had my emotional moment off the back of the Ange sacking. Everyone knows who's heard me talk how much I loved Ange, and I still do. But we move on and we support whoever's coming in next, and obviously that looks like Thomas Frank. I despite my wallpaper, I don't live in the past too much, so it's time for us to.
I do.
Back. other than a trophy, yeah. I try to forget most things that have happened, and look, we can't dwell on what's happened. We know that. Well, a lot of us thought Ange deserved and earned that third season. It's not going to happen. So let's get behind Frank, and it looks like that's going to happen. I'm really, I'm always optimistic, and I always do my best to find the positives in anything. And I do believe we're getting a good managerial pair of hands. It's obviously a step up for him in terms of the pressure. He won't have had this media circus that you get around Spurs. That Ange obviously struggled with at times, keeping his patience. And I do believe that will be a test for him. But I love listening to Thomas Frank, and always have since he's come up into the Premier League. He's a very likable guy. The players seem to follow him. And as Ange obviously got the players won over, and Frank does that as well. I think in a way that there actually is quite a lot of continuity. He's not drastically different from Ange. A little more practical for sure, right? And one of our complaints about Ange was that, he didn't seem to be able to balance his either his attacking desires, or he just went really defensive, which helped win us the trophy. But there wasn't that much in between, and let's hope that's what Thomas Frank can bring, and a bit more balance and onwards, upwards.
Can I just say, Craig, before you come in? For those listening on audio platforms, I've got the picture of the parade behind me. Stu has got the picture of the team lifting the Europa League trophy, and Craig is sitting there with a very dull grey wall behind him. Craig, you need to sort this wall out, I think.
I know. You can get one of them virtual pictures. I should really put one up.
I think you're colourblind, Chris. It's a rainbow.
Oh, is it?
yeah. It's multicolored. No, I'm. I think my one complaint right now is, look, Levy obviously knew Ange was going. He should have had this lined up quicker, because we are missing out on players. You see how quickly all the teams around and above us, which was most teams last year, are moving, and we are missing out every day that it takes longer. And I know a lot of moving cogs have to happen for a new manager to come in, but Levy certainly knew this was happening well in advance, I believe. And to be honest, this should have been a quicker deal, I believe.
I'll ask you the same question, Stu. What is going to be different this time?
History tells us, while Levy's in charge, probably not very much. My only faint optimism, which you guys have already mentioned with Vinay coming in, is that, he's a guy that will put himself in front of the fans. I believe he's on here in the next few days. Is that right, Chris?
I hope so.
I'm putting the pressure on him. He's got to do it now. He's been called out by a farmer on Chris Cowlin's Spurs chat, so he's got to come on.
Is that some new show, Miller's Farm, available on Amazon Prime?
Well, Craig's now got an empty stadium behind him.
There we go.
It's getting better. It's getting better.
I took that picture.
Love it. But honestly, I try to be pessimistic. I'm sorry. I try to be optimistic, but I am pessimistic in terms of, are things actually going to change? Are we just going to be back here in 18 to 24 months? My question really is, what does Thomas Frank have to do to stay past 2 years? And
that's exactly what I was going to ask you, Stu. Answer me that question, because I feel like there's only a couple of tweaks that he needs to make in this team. And of course, we need really good transfer windows. And I said this, it doesn't matter who the manager is. We're going to play Champions League football. Plus, when the board have come out and said that we have to be fighting on all fronts, you need a real good squad with real quality and depth, which is more important when you're planning all these competitions. And the board obviously want us to be fighting on all fronts. That squad needs to be so much better. So if he has a good window, if he brings in experienced Premier League players, and, you know, over the years, I always say this during transfer windows, I always want to see experienced Premier League players come in. I feel like we've got a lot of really good young talent, not only through our youth system, development system, but the players that we have brought in, some really, really good young talented players. But, you know, like Ange said, you know, we were going to be after the experienced players in this window. And I feel like that is so important. I'm not panicking at this stage, Stu, the fact that, you know, the opening 10 days, the first part of the transfer window is closed and we haven't done any business. I'm not sitting here panicking, you know, at all, because it opens again on Monday, the 16th of June, all the way until the 1st of September. So there's a couple of months there. So, you know, we're not panicking at this stage, but I do feel like, especially when you look at the recruitment at Brentford and Thomas Frank being a major part of that, I feel like he could be a really, really good person to be in that room and say, you know, look at this player, look at that player. And of course, the club are very, you know, heavily driven on data, as I believe Brentford were too.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, you know, another thing that I'm optimistic about with Frank coming in is that if you look at the style of players that he does like in his systems, at least two of those players are players that we're missing, I believe, in our team. A very defensively intelligent DM, and a pacey and powerful wide player, of which we probably need at least two. And he likes both of those kind of profiles of players. So, you know, I'd be optimistic that he brings those kind of styles of players in, and that will hopefully elevate our team. But we've got to see Levy back the manager, not just by bringing in, you know, you guys have said it before, not just by bringing in another few teenagers and maybe one player over 25, but we need players that have been there, done that in two or three positions at least. And I know you said that before, but it's worth repeating. So yeah, I remain optimistic. I'm going to back whoever it is in the hot seat all the way, and I'll always do that until they're not there. I'm going to be intrigued to see how Vinay coming in changes the communication with the fans, because we've been complaining about that for a long time, and it's unacceptable. You know, we didn't even get a quote from Levy on the sacking of Ange. That is a disgrace. So I can't, you know, support any kind of leadership that haven't got the balls to come out and, you know, tell the fans what's going on. But yeah, Thomas Frank, I'm in for it, and I like the way that he plays. He doesn't mind going long, but he's not just a long ball merchant. He is adaptable. He's used different systems, and he tweaks according to opponents. So those are complaints we had about Ange that hopefully we'll see, you know, a bit of improvement. In terms of the original question, sorry, honestly, I don't know what he's got to do to go past season 2, because does he have to get Champions League football this year or definitely next year, I would say? If he wins a trophy and is mid-table, we're pretty sure that's not good enough.
Yeah.
Craig,
last question.
Craig,
yeah, sorry. Yep.
Craig, I was going to ask you and Stu the same question here. So Thomas Frank comes in. What targets do the board give Thomas Frank in terms of league position? And because we've won this trophy this season, the Europa League, I suppose there's less pressure to deliver a trophy. Of course, we all want to win a trophy every year and feel like we did a couple of weeks ago, you know, that night in Bilbao, whether it be a League Cup, an FA Cup, the Champions League or the Premier League, which, you know, the latter two are unrealistic, but a domestic cup would be fantastic. But in terms of league position, what would be a good season for Spurs? I know, obviously, you're going to say, you know, top 4, but realistically.
I would say that European football, probably Europa League upwards, is they would say is preferential. Whether they'd say it's a must, I don't know. They're not going to turn around and say win a trophy, but we know that European football is valued above all else by the board.
From a personal point of view, I think the most important thing is we've got to stick with this guy for 4 or 5 years. We have to stick with a manager for longer than 2 years. Even if he doesn't get us into the Champions League for 1 or 2 seasons, we've got to stick with somebody. And that's, to me, is our biggest failing.
What about, Stu, if Thomas Frank, after his first season, finished 12th and no trophies, what would you be saying? Because you just said we need to stick with a manager for 4 or 5 years, but he finishes 12th after his first season. What will you be saying?
Well, I guess technically it's an improvement on the league this season. I'd have to see. I'd want, as long as I saw enough that, look, he's putting a system into place and there was progressive improvement. I'd probably give him a second season, but you probably can't finish 12th 2 seasons in a row. I just worry about unreasonable expectations, and he needs the money behind him to really take us to the next level, I think. So yeah, but I'm optimistic. I think we'll have a good season, and I'm a big fan of Frank, so all good.
Stu, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, boys. Cheers for all your work.
Cheers, thank you. Right, we're now going to go to Jamie. John, we'll come to you next, and Luke, I'm loving that background. You've started the theme now, Craig, the backgrounds. Oh, you've gone back to grey. Jamie, how are you?
I'm all right, Chris. Craig, how are we doing?
All good. Jamie, I know from talking to you a lot of times last season, and you providing videos that we posted on the Spurs Around the World videos or editions, you questioned Ange Postecoglou a lot. What do you make of the decision of him being sacked, and what do you make of this decision now for us to go down the lines of appointing Thomas Frank?
Firstly, I was pretty critical of Ange, and I think rightly so, but I will say I'm grateful. He's got us the best trophy since I've supported Spurs. So in a way, he goes down as our most successful manager, which is bonkers when I don't really rate him, but it's ungrateful if you don't, you've got to say thanks for that. I think it was 100% the right decision. I just don't think tactically, I just didn't trust the bloke. I didn't. After about 15 months, I wasn't with him, if I'm honest. Frank, we said about this a couple of weeks ago. I think Craig asked me the question. I wasn't too convinced. He was probably about 4th or 5th down the line, but I actually am really warming to the idea of this. The more I've looked into him a bit more, since he's been a strong favourite for a good week or so now, and I'm quite confident. I think he's going to get us more organised and more harder to beat, solid. When he first come up with Brentford, they were really not nice to play against, if you like. They were physical, and I think gradually added a bit of style to them. Like they're better on the eye now. So I think that's how he's probably going to start with us. Try and get harder to beat, and then a bit easier on the eye as we go, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, Jamie. I've warmed to the idea, whether that's because you kind of, in my perspective, resigned to the fact that Thomas Frank is coming in. You just have to get on with it, to be honest with you, whether you like it or not. But I'm certainly coming round to it. Of the 3 that were touted, Iraola, isn't it? I think Iraola is something completely different. Silva and Frank, he would be the top man for me out of those 3. Would he have been for you? That was a Freudian slip. It wasn't deliberate, I promise.
Yeah, I was really coming to. I'm sorry, when we laugh. The idea of Glasgow, if I'm honest. But Iraola, we spoke about before the Frankfurt game. I thought I was really impressed with him. I still am, to be honest with you. But I think as the season ended, like with what Glasgow had done at Palace with winning the FA Cup, he's won the Europa with Frankfurt. I really wanted him, but yeah, Frank, I'm happy with him. I think he'll do well, and I think he's a sensible appointment. Maybe not exciting, but sensible, if you like.
Yeah. Jamie, what would you like to see happen in this transfer window? Where do we need to improve on this pitch? Because I always give the standard answer of we need to improve throughout the whole of the squad. But we know that that's not going to be realistic. But the board have come out and said that we want to be a football club that fights on all fronts. So I know all of us fans, you know, a lot of people say, just go out, spend the money. You know, it's not as simple as that, though, is it? You know, we've seen before. And I'm going to mention two players, and I always say this, Ndombele, Lo Celso, you know, you go and spend big. It doesn't always work out. It's not always a success. It is about the recruitment. Of course, Thomas Frank at Brentford, really good recruitment. You know, a lot of unsung heroes in that team, you know, work really, really hard. And a lot of those players achieved a lot more than, you know, people, you know, put them down for. You know, he got a lot of improvement out of a lot of those players. But realistically, what do Spurs need to do in this window for you as a fan to sit there when you know that whistle blows opening day of the Premier League season and you're sitting there saying, oh, we've got a great squad here?
How long's this show, Chris? I think we need
realistic though, Jamie.
I think we need about 4 ready to go, like I said before, to go into the Champions League. That you're not frightened, are they going to be out there? Like, no disrespect, but Archie Gray, I think he'll be good in the end. You know, Mikey Moore. You know, I think they'll be good, but in the top elite level, you are a bit worried about putting them in at the moment. I think we need 4. I've made a little shortlist here. I've got Palhinha, Grealish, Eze, and Bremo, Braithwaite, and Toma, Gay, Skriniar. They're just a few, you know. Like,
are they all coming in, Jamie? Then, yeah.
I said realistic.
About 3 of them.
Jamie, I'll just jump in and add one there. I don't know if you mentioned him because you railed off so many names there. Benjamin Sesko doesn't look like he's coming to Tottenham, but he, for me, would have been well high on my list. I don't know if you're aware of his work, so to speak.
No, I don't know enough about him, to be honest with you, Craig, if I'm honest. But
okay.
there's a lot, mate. I think Eze would fit right in. We said about Grealish a few times. I think it'd be perfect. He's got that bit of, you know, even when we were sort of rubbish in the night, you had that sort of, you know, like a Ginola type player, you know, like that type of player that would just suit Spurs. You know, I think Grealish is born to do that. But I know quite a few of our fan base are not keen on the idea. But Eze would fit right in. I think he gives us something different. Palhinha, I think we need a proper leader in the midfield, a proper, like, aggressive, like a bit of a shithouse, if you like, you know.
Jamie, today, Football Insider said that Birmingham and West Brom have registered interest in signing Tottenham's Mikey Moore on loan for the 25-26 season. Would that be a good move for the football club and the player?
100%. He needs to go and play, like, toughen up a bit, go and play, you know. It'd be perfect for him, I think, you know. Get kicked up in the air a bit, you know, but play every week, you know, every minute, you know. It's gonna improve him. Perfect for him. Yeah.
Who else who would be your number one signing, Jamie? If you could pick one of those players that you mentioned, would it be Eze, would you say?
I really like Grealish. I just think he's just got something about him.
I know what you mean. He's born to play for Spurs, that sort of player in that mould.
He's got a bit of cockiness about, a bit of arrogance, but I just think he'd fit in a bit. I thought the same when we signed Maddison, and I know he's been hot and cold, but I do like Maddison overall. But them sort of people, they're just they're not what I call elite players, but they would stand out at us, if that makes sense.
Jamie, what do you think Ange Postecoglou will go on to do? Do you think we'll see him back in the Premier League?
It's possible. I mean, when you look at his CV, at the end of the day, he said he always wins things his second season, and he's backed it up. You know, I sort of laughed when he said that. You know, I don't think he helped himself at the start because he put himself under pressure on every interview. But fair play to him, he's put his money where his mouth is. He's delivered. You know, but I think if he was a lower league team, like someone like, I don't know, Bournemouth when they weren't as good or something, like, it would be a hell of a punt to go with someone like him because it's so open, expensive. The ones who, if you look at Southampton come up, they tried to play, they got absolutely torn to shreds. With someone like Frank is a safer option, you know, to grind out the points.
Well, there's a job going to be going at Brentford soon by the sound of it, so perhaps they might take a punt on Ange, who knows?
Yeah. might be fighting at the bottom. I don't know.
Look. The thing is, there was a comment saying for people should get behind the manager. I think most people are going to get behind Thomas Frank, right? I think that's the case. I think any manager who comes in, even if you don't agree with that appointment, you should try and support the manager the best you can, and certainly don't, because the fan base had turned toxic towards Ange. And if we had lost that final, we didn't, of course, but I think most fans probably would have been, yeah, Ange has got to go. But the club was probably. Do you think the club was expecting us to win that final, Jamie? Do you think that made their decision harder with Ange?
I think it was probably already decided before the final, and I think that they were probably frightened by how many did we have at that parade? Was it 200?
220,000.
It probably frightened them. They thought this geezer's a hero. Do you know what I mean? Overnight, look what he's done for the. And if they in the day after that or the day after the last game, they'd have got absolutely pelted. I think they let it die down for a few days, and then I think it was already decided. But
Jamie, I reckon next time you're playing wall there. I reckon next time you come on, you ought to have a picture of Ange Postecoglou with the Europa League trophy behind you. What do you reckon?
I'll have the trophy.
Jamie, who would you like to see Spurs play on the opening day of the Premier League season? Because the fixtures are out very soon.
Sunderland at home. I want Frank to get off to a good start because I worry about if we start slowly, especially the ones who've really gutted about Ange. They'll be. I'm just worried that they're going to go straight on him. I hope it don't turn out like Nuno, But if we could get a couple of wins early doors, it relieves a lot of the pressure and people will just buy into the project.
I agree.
Can I ask you two where you think we'll finish this season? I know it's hard to say without the transfer window, but
it's impossible to say without the transfer window. And all I keep saying, and I'll say it every single day until the 1st of September, we need to go big in this window and we need experienced players in and give the manager the best possible chance and the tools. I know you speak about, the fans getting behind. The club need to get behind him and give him the best possible chance, because I feel like we as a football club, especially, the board, need to learn from previous mistakes so we can go forward, because don't let this be a major reset. Let this be a part of the project, that Ange Postecoglou has been a part of, by the way. Let Thomas Frank take over and now move on and be, a real force in the Champions League, because that's, all of us love Champions League football, back in the big time. No disrespect to the Europa League. The Champions League is going to be very, very different. So that depth is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jamie, thanks so much for joining us, and always great to talk to you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, Jamie.
Right, we've got so many people coming in the green room now. This is going to be a 2-hour show, so we're now going to give people 5 minutes to talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. You can either come on and just talk to us, or we can fire questions at you. Totally up to you. We're going to go now to John. John, how are you? You're on mute as well, John.
How's that?
John, perfect,
That's
John.
better.
How are you, John?
He's in Scotland, by the look of it.
They cut the Canadian geese. I couldn't find any cockerels.
Craig's gone back to a grey wall, so at least you've got a better picture than him.
It wasn't working. They couldn't see me ears, and anyway, carry on. What do you want to talk about, John? Go on. Enough about geese.
Okay. Well, I'm probably over Postecoglou. I'm okay. We're moving forward. We can't go back. Been through the periods of grief and anger, etc. And okay, so we're going to get Thomas Frank, although it's not a moment, still not announced, right? It's always been a couple of days and a couple of days and a couple of days. I hope it doesn't all fall through and we're back at stage one. So yes, it's done, and let's get moving, go forward to the next season. Look forward to seeing the fixtures. When the fixtures out, a week or two?
I'll come back to you on that in a second. I'll give you the exact date.
Okay.
Let me ask you, John, what have you made of the Australian media, their reaction to Ange Postecoglou's sacking. And I don't know if you saw the comments from the mayor of Melbourne as well, calling on Daniel Levy to, give Ange his job back.
Yes, I saw that from the mayor of Melbourne. Understandable. I think if it'd been a Canadian, I'd been upset from that point of view. My cousin Adelaide, he was somewhat, is that how they want to treat us? And I understand where he was coming from. So that's understandable. Their pride has been hit, and one understands that. It would be interesting, what happens if Mr. Frank goes out the door, how the Danes are going to feel about us.
It's easy to protect your fellow countrymen, I suppose.
Of course it is.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Patriotic pride gets in the way, and people who know nothing about the game or will get on board because they feel that their homeland has been attacked, and because of a firing. It's bound to happen, and hopefully, we keep all our Spurs fans in Australia together. Let's hope that for that.
John, the fixtures for the Premier League new season comes out next Wednesday, the 18th of June at 9 a.m. So a week today. Look forward to that. Sorry, Craig.
Well, no, actually, leading on from that, who do you want in the first game, John? Who would be your ideal first game?
Somebody has said Sunderland. I'll take Sunderland first game out. Probably be wise, and build from there. The best first game out I ever remember is we went to St James's Park and won 5-1. And then the year after we did the double. I'm all that old. So, that was an exciting start and things look good. So we can take Sunderland to the cleaners first day out. So much the better. And if we can do it in Sunderland, even better, rather than at Tottenham. But I guess that's, I'm being disrespectful to Sunderland, but, that's probably the wise situation to be in.
I didn't want to be boring, John, and say there's no easy game in the Premier League, but it's true. There is no easy game in the Premier League.
No.
John, very, very quickly, how are you feeling about Thomas Frank? Are you excited by this appointment?
I'm ambivalent. We've seen so many people come and go. And I think I said on one of Craig's mornings there, if he gets to year 3, you can count it a success of survival.
Mm.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I tend to agree, John. Actually, I think if he goes into his third season, he's done something right. I think that's the way you got to look at it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the way I look at it. If he comes to his third season and he's still there, we should be pleased.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I keep saying, he could get off to the perfect start, John. He could be lifting that Super Cup trophy against PSG. What a start that would be, eh?
That would be wonderful. I mean, I've not told the lady I'm married to that we're going to play her Rotten Lot in Red in Hong Kong, but I would be delighted if we win that.
Yeah, absolutely. John, always great to talk to you. And
you guys, thank you for all you do, guys. I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you so much. Cheers, John. Have a good day. Right, we're now going to go to Luke. Luke, great background. How are you?
I'm just here in the South Stand, lads, waiting for the unveiling of Thomas Frank.
There's a lot of people there with you.
Yeah, it's a great atmosphere.
It looks like they've got a lot of beds in the South Stand there.
Yeah,
Luke,
we've been here for about 3 days.
Luke, on a serious note, we are still waiting, by the way, for the confirmation of Thomas Frank, but I'm sure it will come tomorrow. How are you feeling about this appointment? Are you pleased?
Yeah, I am. I think it's obviously we all feel like it's been a difficult few days, but I think it's quite a shrewd choice for a number of reasons. And I like him a lot as a person. And I think what's interesting is there's the similarities that people have drawn to Postecoglou are all the positive sides, and then there's things we can say on top of that that are good about Frank as well. So I'm overall pretty pleased with it.
So were you ever doubting Thomas Frank, Luke, or was you like, yes, that's the right choice?
No, because I think that our history, our recent history, says everything you need to know. Like we hired the win now managers, and they didn't work. In fact, they were really disastrous because I think those guys don't fit the model of the club and the way the club wants to operate. And Levy wanted them to bring him success without really giving them the kind of tools they had at the clubs they'd had success at. So that was never going to work. And I see a lot of similarities between this hiring and Postecoglou, and not Postecoglou, actually Pochettino more, because he's coming from a club where he's had Premier League experience and he's done very well, and now he's taking that step up. So no, I've not at any point felt like, I know a lot of people said, "Oh, I'm really underwhelmed," but I think they're taking it a little bit too literally, that they're assuming that it's just going to be like for like, and he's going to turn Tottenham into Brentford, and that's not the way it goes. But of course, it is a step up for him. He does, I was listening to him talk the other day. It was an old interview. In fact, it was before he played Arsenal in the first game of their first Premier League game, when they beat them 2-0, if you remember. And he was saying, they were saying, "Oh, are you going to let the occasion, get overawe you and all the rest of it?" And he said, "I'm going to take a couple of seconds to take it all in, and then I'm going to try and win a football game." And he obviously at no point at Brentford has he turned around and said, "Listen, lads, we don't need to win this week. We're playing City or we're playing Liverpool." But there is that pressure that doesn't come after the game if you do lose those matches, because people don't expect you to win them as much. So the only thing I'm intrigued to see is that whilst he's always probably wanted to win, he's really got to start winning with Spurs, and he will not get, I think, as much grace as he would have at Brentford.
Look, that's a really interesting point, because he's at the moment very comfortable at Brentford. He's been there for 7 years. He's been managing them in the Premier League for 4 years. Everything is very, very comfortable. We all know it is going to be very, very different for him at Spurs. That pressure is going to be huge. And you're absolutely right. All of the doubters, and, we know that this fan base at the moment is mixed. It doesn't matter what the decision is or what, what question you put out there. It is a very mixed, response at the moment. But what do you think in terms of your expectation as a fan? What would your expectation as a fan be for his first season? So you're not doom and gloom saying, "Oh, here we go again."
For me, the thing I want to see is that he's clearly getting a message through to the players, and they're trying to do that on the pitch. I want to see game plans. I want to see us trying things. I used to say it to a friend of mine who's a United fan. Whenever I'd watch United, I would say, "I can't tell you what Ten Hag's trying to do. The players are all over the place. They seem to be, some of them seem to be autonomous and deciding what to do in certain situations. Others seem to be following some sort of pattern, and that's chaos, and it's awful to watch." So for me, he's got an imprint that he's tried to put on the players, and they're trying to do it, and that's what I'd want to see. And I have a feeling that what we're going to see is maybe one or two players in the squad in that first season who don't fit what he wants and will not be able to do it to a certain degree. But from what I've read, he doesn't suffer fools gladly, and he will tell them. But I'm hoping he's got the ability to then put his arm around them and help them to progress and to fit into that system. And if not, then the club should be doing something to move those players on, and that's how they can support him best, I think.
Luke, always great to talk to you, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers,
Thank you so much. Right, we're now going to go to Steve in the Czech Republic. Steve,
Yes.
how are you?
Hi. How you doing?
Hi, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, good to have you with us. How are you feeling about Thomas Frank?
Better than I was last time, funnily enough. If you remember, I was a bit. I was sort of going through the shock of Ange getting the bullet. So I wasn't in a sort of a good frame of mind to take it on, But I've like most people now and yourselves, I've looked at a couple of documentaries of his and the way he works. And I know you can't see everything, facts and figures as well. But so I'm looking forward to it. To be honest, I'll give him a chance. You've got to back him, like everyone's been saying. It's the club we follow. It's not individuals as such.
Yeah.
So we've got to get over it and move on, which there's nothing else to do. So I'm looking forward to it. I like the way he comes across. I think he's he's obviously a data person, and he works well with the players as well. Though he's hands on, so he seems to cover both aspects or more aspects of the training. He gets involved with the training, and he seems to be, like you say, though, he's been a long time at Brentford, and you can get quite comfortable, in that kind of situation. He's taken on a much bigger club. It's Champions League as well. That's like with most people, there's not a doubt. I'm just wondering how he's going to handle it. But otherwise, obviously, like most fans as well, wanting to bring Buemo with him. It sounds like, just bringing his dog along or something. It's not easy. It's not that easy, of course. But as he's been working with him, I think we've got a good chance. I can't understand the guy himself, if Buemo himself, why he would go to United when they're in the state they're in. If it had been like 10, 15 years ago, you could understand, but and we're in the Champions League and they're not. So I'm looking forward to his appointment, and hopefully he'll get off to a good start like we all do. Otherwise he's going to get a few fans on his back. So
that's the thing though, Steve, isn't it?
Say again?
No, that is a really good point, Steve, because I touched on it earlier with another guest. The Tottenham fan base can be toxic sometimes. We're all guilty of it, and it's brutal, just I just hope the fan base does give Thomas Frank time, because he's going to need a bit of time, and that in itself for me is frustrating to hear, because we're in part of another rebuild, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to need patience, like you said, and unfortunately, there's a lot of fans. I don't know if they're the older ones or the younger ones. It doesn't really matter. It's just a case of characters that that are short on patience. Some fans seem to be extremely short on patience. They're going to judge him on his not his opening game, but maybe his first half a dozen, maybe the famous 10, like Ange had the 10. We're undefeated in the first season and all this kind of thing. I don't think you should compare people, really. It's pointless, So,
Steve, go back to last Friday when Ange was sacked by Spurs. If I was to ask you 10 minutes later, who would you like in as the next Spurs boss? Who would you have said to me? Because when you look at Thomas Frank, he is very, very well liked in the football community, not just by Brentford fans, but all Premier League fans. You warm to people, and he is one of those people that a lot of people have warmed to, and it's so obvious. A lot of football people, pundits, etc., ex-players, etc., have said that he deserves this chance to manage at a big club. He deserves this chance to manage in the Champions League. Are you pleased as a fan that Thomas Frank is getting the opportunity at Tottenham? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I've because it was in the cold light of day. I've had a time, like a week or so, to get over the Ange thing, and I've got, because he's, as everyone's saying, he's the front runner. He's odds on, blah blah blah. I think he's a good candidate. He would have been the one I would have probably chosen from the basic, the three that were Iraola and what's his name from Fulham.
Silva.
Silva. I wouldn't have fancied him. So from the ones that were sort of bandied about, the likely ones, let's say, not someone out of left field. I would have still gone for Frank anyway, because the way he's done so well at bringing Brentford up, everyone thought they'd go straight back down in that first season, and he's held them pretty much mid-table, slightly above sometimes. And they do play very nice football, and he basically did what Postecoglou did with losing Kane when he lost what's his name? He's centre forward to the
Tony.
Ivan Tony, and he's still managed to bring on the two strikers and score a lot of goals and keep them in a very strong position. At the same time, playing attractive football, but being very difficult to beat and doing well against the top sides, which is an achievement in itself. So it bodes well. You know, he's not afraid, like Ange wasn't, to go and take on, you know, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea. Didn't beat them all, but he gave them a good game, and in some cases he beat them. Though. So I'm pretty happy. Just don't know who we're going to get in terms of players. No, you fire away with your questions because I'm a bit of a rambler.
Well, that's it, Steve. Your time's up.
Really? Bloody hell, I had all these bloody names written out. I'll tell you what.
Go on.
First game
Go
of
on.
the season, I want us to play Man United. They're the yardstick. Yeah, Man United, mate. And expect top 6 and a good cup run. Nothing more than that.
Craig's got me on strict instructions tonight. Give people, you know, a certain amount of time, and that's it. He don't want to sit here for another 5 hours. Yeah,
there is that. But I think
Steve,
it's just getting.
I'll talk to you all night
as we can. Yeah.
I know.
I understand, mate. Yeah,
we love you, Steve. We love you, Steve.
Yeah. Craig said, "Get him off. But I'll talk to you all night." Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. See you later. Bye. Go on. Bye.
What have we done?
You pressed the wrong button. What have you done there?
There
you go. You can have it.
On too long, you
can have it, mate. You can have it.
Oh God, what's going on? Hang on. There we go.
Right. Cheers, Steve.
Right.
Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Oh God. Will you stop rushing me? Stop rushing me. Right. We're now going to go to Noel. Noel's always smiling. Noel, how are you? Noel's on landscape.
Chris,
wow.
I can't believe what you did to poor Steve. I better not ask you a question at the end. You know, I'd be afraid.
Come on, Noel, you've got 90 seconds. Go.
Chris, hold on a minute. I'm on landscape.
I've just said you're on landscape. The season is... Things are looking up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things
Chris.
are looking up.
I've figured it out. It's just taken me 6 months, but I have eventually figured it out. You know.
Wow.
So, yeah, Chris, I can't believe it. 3 weeks ago, and they say, you know, that a week is a long time in politics. Well, 3 weeks is a long time in Tottenham Hotspur history. I can't believe actually, you know, that Levy didn't do it early. We talked about this the last time I spoke to you. You know, I said he must be a bit of a sadist, and it's proved right. But look, we are where we are, and I think Frank is a good appointment. You know, I've actually done a wee bit of research into him, you know, since, and started listening to some of his, his interviews. First of all, he's a very commanding looking man. You know, he's very, dare I say, he's a handsome man. You know, has got a good presence about him. You know, I mean, I'm actually in the sales business, and I make a judgment on people within 5 minutes. You know, whether I like them, whether I can do business with them. And he comes across as a person that you could do business, wouldn't like to step on his toes. So I think, you know, he's very, I saw his ideas for Brentford look very impressive. And, you know, what he's done with that team, you know, it's a small club in comparison to Tottenham. And the amount of rubbish I've heard in the last couple of days about people saying, well, why would he step down to go to Spurs? Well, why wouldn't he? I mean, to me, it's a step up. And how many managers have you saw that have been loyal to clubs and have been sacked within 6 months because it's gone wrong? So I think he's bloody right. It's a good opportunity for him. I mean, the amount of slagging and the amount of media bias against Tottenham, to me, is unbelievable. Like, you know, every time, like the slagging that goes on social media, you know, by so-called pundits who I wouldn't have a lot of time for, a lot of them. But, you know, I mean, you know, if you look at, I mean, I think it's a project for the right manager. You know, the whole infrastructure is in place. You've got a fantastic stadium, fantastic, you know, training grounds, and we're ready to go to the next step. And I mean, okay, there's always been question marks about Levy. But, you know, I remember Alan Sugar saying one time, you know, that Spurs fans, you know, can't have Christmas every day. They can't have a new player every week. And he was the one that actually cautioned about Leeds United. And look what they have done for the last, you know, 20 years. I've spent literally the best part of 20 years outside of the Premiership. So, you know, I would just wish that some people would give Daniel Levy a bit of credit. And I'd be a critic of his as well. But, you know, to me, the foundations are there. We're ready to go to the next step. And, you know, with a bit of shrewd judgment and maybe a bit of more tactical nous this time, hopefully Frank is the man to do it. And for me, if you're going to ask me who would I want on the first day of the season, I'll go for Chelsea away, because maybe we would actually win there for the first time in about once in 30 years, and if not, get it out of the way. So that's the way I'm feeling, Chris. Fairly positive, and we need to now, you know, hit the ground running, get some signings in, you know, some astute signings, and I'm sure, you know, the attraction of Premier League football, or sorry, Champions League football, will be a major factor in some players going to Spurs. But some of the people I've heard, you know, linked to Spurs, I wouldn't take Jack Grealish. I don't care what anybody says, you know. I think, you know, there's better players out there, but maybe with a better attitude, you know. So, well, I mean, football is like everything else. Everybody has an opinion, Chris. So it's all about opinions.
I knew he was trying to say that.
No,
You was going
no.
to say something else. Didn't you?
No, I'm laughing, Noel, because you haven't stopped for breath and you've asked yourself about 25 questions.
I'm so excited, Chris. You know, it's so good to be on. You set the tone. You set the tone. You set the tone of what you did to Steve at the last one. So I'm afraid to ask you a question.
It's Craig. It's Craig. He's rushing us up.
Yeah.
We're working on a system when the clock strikes zero, it boots
ask
you
me
off.
another question, please.
We've got 30 seconds left now. So
ask me another question, Chris.
Right, stop talking. I'll ask you a question now. Right. What one player, if you could sign one player this transfer window for Tottenham, who would you bring in?
Essie, all day long.
Good man. Have to agree.
Will that do? Will he do?
That would do lovely for me. What about you,
Better
Chris?
than Jack Grealish all day long, Craig.
I agree with that. I'll give you that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
No, thanks so much for coming on. And as you know, Noel, I'll talk to you all night. So
Chris, you're fantastic. I'm a big fan, and Craig.
He says that to everyone.
I can't wait for the new generation.
Love you, Noel.
Thanks,
Good
Noel.
man.
See you soon.
Sorry.
He's kicked himself. Brilliant. Love you, Noel. Love you, Noel. Top man.
Right, we're going to go to Charlie. Charlie, how are you?
Hello, Chris. Sorry, I think you muted me there. Yeah, I'm fine. Right, I've got 5 minutes, so I better get going.
Go, Charlie. Go.
I'm very good. I know what you're going to ask me. You're going to ask me about Thomas Frank, and I think on Friday I was very, I've just been sacked. This club, they're going downhill, but I've got over it now. I can see why they sacked him. They have got good reasoning. Was it the right decision? I will stick to what I said. No, it was not the right decision. Daniel Levy, no, bad choice. But, I've been assessing the way that Brentford play. My friend supports Brentford. I want to get on my YouTube at the start of the year. I really want to talk to him and see, really what he says. But he's told me Frank is going to do amazing at Tottenham. He's feeling a similar way to me about Ange leaving. But yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy week. You can never have a week off with Tottenham, can you? But yeah, I mean, what a week. This UEFA Club CONMEBOL Challenge, whatever. We didn't have a final, Chris. Like, everyone says, the Super Cup, you're going to lose 10-0.
I hope they play it.
They better play it. Yeah. They better play in this final. I mean, but yeah, look, this is, it's been crazy week at Tottenham. We're hearing transfers. We need to get Xavi Simons. But yeah, back into Thomas Frank. I think, like many Tottenham fans, I've convinced myself that he is the right man for the job. As I put it just here, Thomas the Frank engine. He is going to drive us to the top of the table. This is, it's going to... I was speaking to my granddad today, and he said, I feel something special with Thomas Frank. I really do. And that he could do a slot. So let's hope, let's have our fingers crossed that Thomas Frank can drive the train to the top of the table.
Charlie, would you take Jack Grealish?
No, I wouldn't take Jack Grealish. Simple answer. Absolutely not. Like Noel just said, get Eze or get Simmons, like I said. No.
Charlie, what have you learnt about Thomas Frank in the last few days of doing your research on him? Because I'm sure that every single Spurs fan has done exactly the same thing, gone on YouTube, read lots of reports, looked at interviews, press conference that he's done in the past. What have you really been impressed about him and perhaps what you've learnt about him in the last couple of days?
I'll be honest, I haven't watched his press conference because most of them I see him eating a slice of pizza or doing something. I think he looks like a lovely guy, and I'm excited to see him in the press conferences at Tottenham because I'll be for sure watching them. But I've been looking at the way they play, the formations they play, and something Ange got a lot of criticism for was the fact we had no adaptability. It was the same way every single game. We're going to have Thomas Frank, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing that. It's going to be 5 at the back, it's going to be 4 at the back. I've been drafting a lot of Tottenham teams, and normally when I do it, it takes me about 5 minutes. It's taken me about 15 minutes today when I did one, because I'm doing, right, well, here's how we're going to play over back 5, here's how we're going to play over back 3 with more attacking fullbacks, and here's how we're going to play over back 4. He's going to be the squad players. He's adaptable, and that's what Ange got criticised for a lot. And Thomas Frank's going to come in and do that. Is his football exciting? I don't know. I'm not too sure. I was never sure on Conte's back 5, and I was Conte out from very early on. I always said, this is boring. I don't want to come and watch this every week. I say I'm a season ticket holder. It was rubbish. We were watching it. I remember. Do you remember the round of 16 against AC Milan? Last minute substitution. Lucas Moura off, Darren Sanchez on, and we're 1-0 down. What was he thinking? But yeah, no, I think Frank's going to do it. He's sad about Poch. The back 5 they play, I like it. And I hear a lot of people saying about how they don't play with attacking midfielders. They do. They do play with attacking midfielders. Who's been their best player this season? Mikael Damsgaard and Brian Mbuemo. Where does Damsgaard play? Attacking midfielder. I'm not saying we should sign Damsgaard. I don't think he'll fit into Tottenham. We've got Maddison, Kulusevski, I think Eze and Simmons, but I want them to be wingers when we sign them. I did say in my emails today, Chris, I like to talk about the transfer targets. So last time I said to Steve, I thought Ben Davies was leaving. He's signed a new contract. Forgive me, Ben Davies. You're a legend. You're a part of the team who lifted the Europa League. I've actually got a picture now of when they lifted it. I went and got one for me and my granddad on the TikTok shop. A nice cheap one for £8, and a nice voucher on there. I was able to get that. But where was I? They play back 5, adaptability, and let's do it. Let's win the league.
Love it, Charlie.
Charlie, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Chris. I'll be excited you again soon. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Charlie.
Right. We have got a couple of guests left. Brian is now in the green room. Brian, how are you?
I am very, very good, Chris. I hope you and Craig are doing well and everyone in the chat.
Very good. Brian, we're giving everyone 5 minutes. I promised Craig that we'd be finished by 2 hours. A few more people have just entered the green room, and I can't ever keep to these times because you know that I love to talk, and I'd have people like you on for a couple of hours at a time, but it's just impossible. So tell us, Brian, without us even asking you a question, I know you can talk for England or talk for Canada. Tell us how you're feeling right now about Ange going, Thomas Frank coming in. What do we need to do in the transfer window? And tell me, 19 managers in 24 years, 8 different managers in the dugout since and including Pochettino since 2019, including caretaker managers. What's going to be different this time?
Well, that is a lot. So, my God, let my brain just compute what you just said. Go. Speed talking. Look, I think the way Ange was sacked was absolutely scandalous. I wasn't happy about it. I was Ange out from January, but after he won the Europa League, I was like, Joe, this guy, he's won a trophy. He's done more than any other manager before, apart from Ramos has done. He deserves, if he stays, I'll be fine. I'll back him. But Spurs have gone down this avenue. I can understand why they have, but the number one pick that I actually wanted before Ange Postecoglou was Thomas Frank. I think Thomas Frank is absolutely wildly underrated. I actually, ironically, wanted him from do you remember Harry Kane's last Premier League goal where he scored what people say free kick? But that last home game of Harry Kane in a Spurs shirt, was against Brentford, and in that second half, they completely turned it round. And what I love about Thomas Frank is his adaptability in games, the way he develops youngsters and finds talent.
Yeah.
His coaching, and I've been watching so many actual interviews, podcasts with him, everything. I love everything he stands for. A lot of people are saying, oh, he's going to work with Levy under a tight budget. Maybe that is the case. Maybe he will, but that tight budget he has is going to be a lot bigger than he has at Brentford.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think this man, the way we look at how he progressed, you got to remember, Thomas Frank just keeping Brentford in the league is a miracle. An absolute miracle. And when he does this, every single year he's losing his best players. Not because he wants to, because he has to. Brentford don't have the pull, unfortunately for them, to say, no, we're keeping him, keep your hands off. And they just bring out new players, develop them, and away they go. I think he is absolutely wildly underrated. And I've seen people go, well, Ange beat him twice this year. Well, Craig, let me just ask you one question. Would you rather do the double over any team in the league, any of them, or would you rather finish 18 points ahead of them?
True.
I know which one I'd pick. I know which one I'd pick every single time. If that lot down the road beat us twice and I finished 18 points, or we finished 18 points ahead of them, I'll take it. And I was watching you earlier, Chris, and I know another thing. I've been going mad on Twitter in love of Frank. When you was talking about who we should have first game of the season, and you said, here we are, like you said, in Premier League history, all the managers we've had, we've beaten them once. This man has gone to Stamford Bridge with only Brentford, weaker team than us, weaker wage paying, and he's beaten them 3 times out of 4.
Yeah, incredible.
I think he's exactly the man Tottenham need. The way I've looked at it as well, Chris, so I'm just trying to get a load in. Just so people know, people put happy birthday in your chat. It's not my birthday. And they're going in all the chats and saying happy birthday to me. It's not my birthday for another 11 days.
It was Craig's birthday yesterday.
Yeah, there's someone in my WhatsApp group that's birthday is today, but for some reason people are going in chat saying happy birthday to me. For some stupid reason, it's not for another 11 days. I have where was the train of thought I was going with that? I completely forgot.
Anyway, Brian.
No, that is, don't you stop.
Well. Answer this very quickly. What do you want for your birthday? What do you want for your birthday in terms of transfer window?
I would love Eze. Eze is the one. I think what we got to see is when we get our players in, I will back whatever players comes in from. Frank has got a proven record with people we don't know. Danny Rose used to say we had to Google our names, and they didn't really come off. Thomas Frank has a history and a track record of doing it. And although, listen, Ange will be an absolute legend in my eyes, won a trophy that many managers have failed to do so. The Jose's, the Conte, all the great managers we've had, they haven't been able to do it. We've been in competition, European competition, God knows how many times in the Premier League era, but more often in Europe than out of it. No manager's done it. Ange has. No managers have won trophies apart from Ramos and Jazz. The way it's been handled is atrocious, but we need a coach that can develop players, find players, and get this team purring in different formations. And that man is Thomas Frank.
Brian, I know I haven't let Craig have a word in here, but I'm going to give you 3 names. Lastly, I'm going to give you 3 names. Just give me a yes or no whether you'd like to see him in the Spurs shirt next season. Semenyo.
Yes.
Grealish.
I'm really undecided with this. As much as I don't see how he fits in, so I'd say no, but I do love him. Who's the third?
And Morgan Gibbs-White.
Oh, Morgan Gibbs. I'm obsessed with Morgan Gibbs-White. Is top of that list for me. Eze. I wanted Eze and Gibbs-White over Maddison. I think Morgan Gibbs-White, especially now, both in an Ange, but now especially in a Thomas Frank team, would be absolutely incredible for Tottenham Hotspur. Yes, Morgan Gibbs-White. Yes.
Brian, thanks so much for coming on, and I promise you'll get longer next time.
I came in late. I hope everyone in the chat has a good night. And all I will say, Thomas, Frank, Thomas, Frank. See you later, Chris and Craig.
Cheers, Brian. Top man. Right, we're now going to go to Melvin. Melvin's joined us. Melvin, how are you?
I'm good. Yo, how are you guys?
Melvin, we saw a very emotional Melvin the other night talking about Ange Postecoglou leaving. Have you had time to reflect, and are you now behind Thomas Frank?
You know me, I'm always behind the manager. Always. Whoever sits in the chair, I always back them. And I think it can, in hindsight, it could be a really smart appointment. Gutted to see Ange go. I think Ange went through a very difficult period at the club where, we went through a time where we got rid of the dead wood. He did the pruning, as he called it in the summer. We played some kids, gave them some minutes, bleeding them in, Archie Gray, Bergvall. But there's still a lot of work to do. And I think Thomas Frank is probably a very smart appointment by the club. Long term and short term, I think it's the right balance. And yeah, my brother messaged me. He said he was going to replace me, so I had to come back on. But yeah, I was listening to the show a little bit, and I'm always excited for the season. Tottenham Hotspur do the wildest thing to us, and range of emotions. When Ange was sacked, I was disappointed of what could have been, but at the same time, I think Frank excites me in a different way. I think he's a manager that still has the elements of Ange Postecoglou, which I like. He's a very good speaker, sends his message across, he's very adaptable. I'm happy with the appointment, when it happens, and I'm really excited to see what he does with this young, moldable, young team, up and coming team.
Melvin, just going away from the Thomas Frank for a second, were you pleased Mickey van der Ven scored last night?
Well,
sorry, mate.
It's all right. Malta's quite poor as a footballing nation. I mean, I have friends who've played for Malta. My girlfriend's uncle played for Malta, scored for Malta. Hopefully, my brother-in-law will one day play for Malta. So, as a footballing nation, we're up and coming. And famously, my girlfriend's uncle had an argument with Madison on the pitch. Played versus Harry Kane. So Malta as a footballing nation, we're still up and coming, and hopefully we'll be, much more competitive nation. But Mickey van der Ven scoring against Malta is not very difficult, since I played against these level of players and do quite okay.
What was the score, Melvin? Seriously, I actually don't know. All I'd heard is that you lost.
It was 8-0 in the end. But if you look at the lineup that they played,
he knows fully well what the score was.
I didn't, Melvin. Don't listen to him. Honestly, I didn't. I know it was a bad. Anyway, moving on. Come on, it's only football, isn't it? Come on. Go on, Chris.
Melvin, what's going to be different under Thomas Frank, short term and long term? What do you think is going to be different this time?
I think he's a manager that really fits the style of the club, the way the owners operate, or the way the owners want to operate. I think the data side of him complements what we're trying to achieve. The rest, I don't know much about his philosophy, to be honest. I've had this couple of days since that video. I was in London, and I really try to stay away from anything about Frank. I've not seen any videos, any podcasts. They're all on my list, which I need to educate myself on, the new manager. So I'm going to probably take the next couple of weeks to learn about, his philosophy, his style of play, what he's all about. But from what I've seen, he is an exciting manager, and I think the appointment was very clever. It was harsh, and Postecoglou will find work for sure. Malta might be looking, and you never know. So Postecoglou will definitely find, another job in football, and I wish him all the best. I still love the guy. In a way, I'm still heartbroken, but at the same time, I'm still feeling that feeling we felt when Jose was here. I was disappointed Pochettino was gone, but excited for Jose. I'm still in the exact same position. I'm gutted we lost Postecoglou, but happy we have we have Thomas Frank, and excited of what's coming up.
Nice. Yeah.
Melvin, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah,
and we'll talk to you soon.
I was the first one last time, and I think I'm going to be the last one today if you're not going to still go for more. Anyways, all the best, guys. I'll speak to you soon.
Craig's rushing everyone up tonight, Melvin. So it's going to be a short show. He's rushing everyone up.
Just sticking to the rules. Just sticking to the rules, Chris. I'm a stickler for the rules. You know.
Yeah. Well, if you didn't waste time, keep saying 8-0, 8-0 about Mickey van der Ven scoring, we might have asked him more questions. Yeah. Melvin,
Sorry,
thanks so much. Speak to you soon.
See you, mate. Bye.
Sorry, you're not sorry. Right, we're now going to go to William. William, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
William, how are you feeling about the Thomas Frank appointment?
I've got my head around it, but obviously I know he's done fantastic at Bournemouth. He's kept them up since bringing them up to the league, and he's kept them there under the budget that he's had. So he's done fantastic there. So I've got my head around it. It's just obviously, like I've said to you before, we've just got to stop changing managers constantly. Like, we need to have a manager and just stick with them now. Like, go from there.
Is it fair to say Thomas Frank is going to unearth some decent players at Spurs?
I mean, he could do, and yeah, I know where you're going with the unearth thing, because obviously,
the comments now, William, when you come on, the comments, it just, you see me sitting here laughing, and some of these comments.
Yeah, I think he'd do okay. It's just obviously he's got to win those players right now, hasn't he?
Do you think he can? Do you think he's going to win the players round quick? I mean, he's a good man manager, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got good man management. I mean, on a player's point of view, it's their job to obviously play, and obviously if they want to sulk, they have the right to sulk, but they've got to play for this new manager. So obviously, I know pretty much all of them are a bit disappointed, but they're employed by Tottenham. They play for Tottenham, and obviously managers change all the time. But like I said, managers, we just got to keep with one manager now and build on that rather than change after 18 months to 2 years.
Yeah.
William, who would you like to see Spurs sign in this transfer window?
Couple of experienced players, and I would say Eze as well. And I think the little kid, I can't remember his name. He said Xavi Simons, maybe them two, to add that little bit more creative. And obviously, Simons kind of has some Champions League experience. So obviously he'll be able to kind of adapt into that role. We need, obviously, if Romero's going, we need kind of like replacement for him. But I would say,
who is a like for like replacement for Romero? Who is that?
I honestly can't tell you. I mean, Romero, he's hot-headed at times, but that's just the way he plays. I mean, I don't know anyone who's a like replacement for Romero.
He's one of a kind. Probably Gay, perhaps, but I know he plays on the left, but
actually, Gay, he's actually done fantastic for Palace as well, and obviously when he's played for England, he's done fantastic as well. So maybe Gay.
Who'd you summon if you could bring in one player this summer, William?
I will probably say Eze as well. Obviously, we were linked to him last year. I would say if the board want to kind of get the fans on their side, then go out and make that marquee signing. Obviously, Eze, he's not a youngster. Well, he's still young, but he's not a youngster. But he has experience. So he's got experience in the league, and obviously he has experience playing for England.
Yeah.
William, what will be the main focus for Thomas Frank when he comes in as manager? What would be the main focus for his first season?
I think he's got to steady the ship, and then obviously figure out what players fit into his system, and obviously, and certain players need to adapt to that because obviously some players couldn't adapt to obviously Ange's philosophy of constant attacking, but like obviously I think Thomas Frank has a couple of ideas and he does change things. It's just down to the players. The players got to kind of step up and kind of adapt as well. And obviously, we need to bring in players that can fit into Thomas Frank's management.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to add, William? Any thoughts on Spurs?
Well, just the board. Like, if you want to get the fans on side, be more like let the fans know what's going on, and obviously back the managers, because for all these managers, there's never been really any backing. So I would say back the manager, stick with the manager, and make it a lot better than like in the league than what it has been.
William, thanks so much for joining us as always, and have a good week. And we'll speak to you soon.
I'll speak to you soon. Thanks, guys. See you
Cheers.
later.
Cheers, William.
Bye.
Craig, we're nearly done it. We're nearly done the 2 hours. We've gone to 2 hours 16. We're nearly done it. This is the closest we've ever come, and you've rushed people up tonight. You might have upset a few of our guests tonight by rushing them up.
No, they still love me. If we'd given everybody 5 minutes, we'd have finished on time. But you actually owe me £16 now because you said £1 for every minute we went over, didn't you?
I was so confident. I said, "Don't worry, Craig. We'll be done by 2 hours. I'll give you £1 for every minute we go over." So I was only joking, mate. I was only joking. No, Craig, it's been another great show, and it's so interesting to talk to people all around the world, Spurs fans, of course, about their thoughts, their feelings on the departure of Postecoglou. As a lot of people have said tonight, you've got to park your emotions, and you need to move on. As a football supporter, as a football club, the fans need to get behind the new manager. We do expect the official announcement from Tottenham Hotspur Football Club either on Thursday or Friday. From what we understand, they're going through the contracts, and they are, going through all of the backroom staff who Thomas Frank want to bring with him, which I feel is really important for him to bring that team with him. And also that I don't even think we've spoken about this tonight, about him bringing a set-piece coach. That's going to be different to how Ange Postecoglou done things.
It sure is, and dedicated set-piece coach as well, like set-piece specialist, a bit like Gianni Vio when we had him. And of course, how he turned around their fortunes in that area, the attacking, obviously not the defending. He was primarily an attacking. I'm not sure whether Frank's set-piece coach does both, but I think that's... Look, the set pieces, I think, are incredibly important, whether it be corners, throw-ins, anything like that, sort of free kicks. And I agree with what you said earlier. If we could, people will poo-poo it, but I remember when we used to play Stoke, and Rory Delap would come in and just launch those balls in the box. I think it's such a weapon to have because it's as good as a free kick, isn't it, or a corner. So, if we bring in, he might want to bring in somebody. I don't know who does it for Brentford. I don't know enough about their players, but I know they've got a couple of players that can launch the ball into the box. So don't be surprised, perhaps, if we either, I don't know if you can train somebody to throw the ball like that. It seems to be a natural gift. But we'll see. Being very interesting.
I'm sure if someone was practicing week by week, I'm sure they get better and better at it.
Yeah. I was always crap at throw-ins, actually. And then I actually... I think it's all in the techniques, like anything else, isn't it? But it's I'm really, really, really kind of on board with it now, and excited to see what he can bring to Tottenham.
Yep. Craig, thanks so much for joining me this evening. I know we've gone over a little bit, but it's been a great show. Been great to talk to everyone, and we're very thankful and grateful for so many people coming on, wanting to come on. And if you'd like to come on rather than watch or listen, please do send us an email, tottenhamfanchris@gmail.com, and we will get you on a future fan show. It's always great to talk to new fans wherever you are in the world. And of course, we're very grateful that so many people around the world watch and listen to this channel. So thank you so much for all of your support. Craig, thank you. And I've no doubt at all that we will be back very soon.
No doubt at all. Yes, with the announcement imminent, so to speak. So yeah, watch this space.
Craig, thank you. Thanks to all of the listeners and the viewers, and we will see you again soon. Stay safe, stay well, and have a great week. Come on, you Spurs.